Welcome everyone to the International Education Abcodo Webinar, and specifically today, guys, we are having Cypress College. Thank you for taking out time to join our agent exclusive discussion today. We are delighted to know that many of you are interested in growing your business while learning about the latest insights in the international education scene and student recruitment for fall 21-22 semester. So before we begin, let me mention a few reminders for our participants. We will have open the floor for Q&A session, but you may send in your questions using the Q&A button that you will see on your screen. Addition to that, there's also a link at our chat box. If you can fill your details on the request link so we can get back to the earliest. Abcodo is a dedicated recruitment network of MSM Unify that offers well-vetted agents, complete applications, and global reach to our partner institutions. Apart from that, through well-vetted agents in the Abcodo network, institutions access diverse pool of students around the globe. Majorly, if I just take over with the Abcodo part, the global network advantage, AI-powered platform, unlimited 360-degree marketing and analytics support we give. So basically, both MSM Unify and Abcodo are the products which are offering of M-Square Media. Just with a brief discussion about the same, I am pleased and honored to welcome Jaya Singh, the International Enrollment Manager. We have Upendra Vasudev, who is the Director of International Enrollment, and David Martin, owner of the Cypress College. Welcome, everyone. And with not much ado, we'll just start with the entire session today for the Cypress College. And welcome all of you three. And we'll also have a kind of a Q&A session, which we'll be taking at the last. And now I'll hand over the entire session, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Vipul. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, however. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jaya, and I'm the recruitment manager at Cypress College. And it's been a very long relationship with the Cypress College and an exciting journey altogether with David and Upendra. I would like to congratulate Abcodo, MSM, and all the associated agents for the new collaboration. Let's begin today's session in the hope of creating opportunities for all of us, the agent partners, the institute, and last but not the least, our students out there. Over to you, Upendra.
Thank you for that. I would have continued to speak. Thank you, Jaya, and good morning, everybody. Rather good afternoon in India, good evening in Canada. So it's a pleasure to have this session today. I'm thinking it's mainly agencies here. So Dave will try and give you perspective from the institution point of view, and I will try and give you perspective from an agency point of view. So I'll let Dave begin first. Over to you, Dave.
Okay, so we have a little PowerPoint, Jaya. Should we use that to go through the things about the college? Or yeah, then I don't forget anything. Or I could freestyle. I have confidence. So yeah, my name is David Martin. I founded Cypress College 21 years ago in Southern Alberta in Medicine Hat. And I just made some notes of things to kind of step agents who are brand new to my region of Canada potentially, or to our product or service. What are some things that are, worthy of note? And basically how to help us with Upendra zero in on what's the student profile that benefits most from here. So okay, so yeah, a bit about our college. So I live in southeastern Alberta, and that's where Cypress College is located. Southern Alberta is a tourism hub. It connects us to the Canadian Rocky Mountains and what are called the Badlands, which is where all the dinosaur fossils, and it sounds terrible, but it's a beautiful place to visit. And we get visitors all year round, and it connects the Cypress Hills into the Glacier Provincial Park, which becomes Glacier National Park on the American side of the border. So Cypress College is named for the Cypress Hills and the Cypress Provincial Park that is right at the edge of our border. And we live in Cypress County in southern Alberta. And so that's where the name comes from. And of course, we named Cypress College years before we did international recruitment, and actually before I had really thought about the country of Cyprus and how that could be confusing for some agents. But no, we're southeastern Alberta and Western Canada. So, and Cypress College is located in Medicine Hat. So this is a map of all of Medicine Hat. We're in the southeast corner. We're very close to the American border, and really close to the Saskatchewan border on the east side, and the Canadian Rocky Mountains to the west of us. So Medicine Hat is for Alberta. It's a city of about 60,000 people, which in Alberta is the sixth largest city. So I know in India, that's just a town in between towns, but here it's a pretty major center. It's very sunny in Alberta, southern Alberta, and I know from reputation there's snow and stuff. We don't get as much snow as other parts of Canada, not like Eastern Canada or places like that. It's pretty temperate, pretty warm here. We're close, another major city, to Lethbridge and south of Calgary, where the international airport is. But all of this region in southern Alberta around the Calgary, Waterton, Banff Lake Louise area is a very high tourist area, which is significant for our purposes, that we have many people visit here, eat in our restaurants and stay in our hotels, but we don't always have very many people living in those locations, which generates sort of the first opportunity for our school. So if we click the next slide, I can get into like our work placement. So yeah, in 2016, our school got approved as a DLI, and really what had happened was Cypress College's relationship within Canada was founded on reskilling Canadians. So, in times where we live, there aren't as many workers. Everything's sort of the opposite of India, where there's maybe too many people and an overload of workers. Here, we sometimes have huge labor shortages, really acute shortages in labor. So our job, usually in partnership with the Alberta government, is to retrain Canadians who are out of work in one industry and retrain them for an industry where there's a shortage. So quite frequently we take people from oil and gas. Actually, both of the students in that picture are from the oil and gas sector, and they were retraining to become chefs and work in our hospitality program. But back in 2016, our partner hotel, which is Stage West, they have about 13 properties in southern Alberta and employ about 1,600 people. They started coming to me with these requests to say, I'd like to hire 25 cooks for a new building that we're building. And that's when, I started telling them, like, well, I don't have 25 domestic Canadian cooks that will move to another city. But actually, the general manager of that hotel property, he himself had come to Canada after studying culinary, and he was from Mumbai, India. And that's actually how we started international recruitment. So back in 2016, we got our DLI approval, and we started to accept international students for study. So but otherwise, we've been teaching domestic Canadian students since 2001. The core, goal of our school, and still is, about 75% of our students today are still the domestic Canadian students, taking people who are interested in business, IT, and hospitality, and giving them skills so that they can be successful in the workplace. And Cypress College has a really deep connection with the employer community in our region. Different than a lot of public schools that you might have relationships with, our background has always been to help fill human resources and hiring needs for schools. So in our region, I think it's on the next slide, that we partner with the province as the employment agency. Oh yeah, Culinary Arts and Hotel Restaurant Management is the program we promote internationally. But we connect with agents or with hotels and employers in our region, and they usually come to us for their hiring needs. Yeah, there we go. So we've run Employment Help Medicine Hat, Employment Help Brooks, which are the two cities in our close proximity. And our job has always been with the government to help, place workers. So in addition to being a college, unemployed Albertans come to Cypress College for employment services, job placement skills. And most of the employers in the region, when they're looking for workers, they turn to Cypress College to help fill their HR needs. So for us, it's very natural to help students to transition into employment, which I think is the germ of the story that led us to Upendra and international recruitment. So this is just a letter, I guess, this is a technicality, but what this is showing is that our program is recognized by the Alberta government as the equivalent to our trade program, which is to say that when you study hospitality and culinary arts at Cypress College, you're studying the Canadian Red Seal Chef program that's recognized across Canada. So it isn't, Dave's program. It isn't Cypress College's own material. This is what's taught at every culinary school that's recognized by the province of Alberta in the chef trade. And that's significant. So our students graduate with the exact same credential that they would get at any public college who was connected to us. In Alberta, each region of the province is given an area to be the partner for training with the provincial government. And in southeastern Alberta, it's Cypress College. In Calgary, it's SAIT. In Edmonton, it's NAIT. In other regions, it's public colleges, but we're a private college and we have that connection with the provincial government here. So we're a private college, but we have a really unique designation in terms of private colleges, that we're the private college that's connected and partnered in order to train the government's program in Southern Alberta. There you go. So, my relationship in business, and I think what's different from most colleges, I mean, all colleges in Canada train students to do jobs in the labor force. That's their goal. But our college has a particular track record and history of direct placements with employers, because part of our mandate has always been to help fill jobs with Canadian students. And the reason we turn to the international community is because a lot of the businesses that we place our Canadian students with have so many job vacancies that we just can't fill with our domestic supply of students. So I think one of the things that's really unique if you come to visit Southern Alberta is you'll see advertisements for our restaurants, but instead of saying, come eat at my restaurant, the ads explain, come work at my restaurant. So we don't have a shortage of customers because of tourism that comes here, but we do have a shortage of workers who are skilled workers who are able to come work and manage a kitchen. So our relationship is in that placement side. And I think that's what sets our program apart. If you're trying to, in your catalog, when you're trying to figure out, what's the best pathway for a student. So looking at students who would like to work in Canada, especially in the hospitality sector, Alberta is a great place to place someone who's a cook. Now, there are cook shortages across, you can go back to that one, Jaya. There are cook shortages across Canada, but in larger centers, where there's millions of people, there are lots of trained hospitality workers. So they might put a job ad out and they'll get, 400 or 500 qualified applicants in a city like Toronto or Montreal. But in our communities, we might have 400 or 500 guests come eat at the restaurant. But when we go to advertise for a chef, there might be 0 Canadians who are willing to relocate to some of these properties. They're some of the most beautiful places on earth. We get married there. We have our conferences and conventions there, but not very many Canadians actually live there. And the people who do live there tend to be really wealthy and not necessarily want to come work in our restaurants. So finding staff for that is really key. And you can see this is even before COVID, that cooks in Alberta get paid pretty well. The average wage is $17.75 an hour for someone after 1 year in our course. It's apprenticeship, and there's usually a shortage. But since COVID, that shortage has become much more pronounced. So there's a great shortage now. A lot of people left industry due to COVID and haven't come back yet, and we don't quite have an answer in our labor force other than international students to sort of address that. Okay, so this is a picture of one of our students, Kabir, signing his contract actually at the hotel. But this is just one of our hotel partners, Stage West. This particular property is where our classroom is located, and so in addition to being a school, it's also a 4-star hotel with 3 restaurants and a casino. And they're eager to hire our students and graduates. They work with them, they know them. But this particular manager hires for 13 other properties too. And that's why, domestically, we're still meeting just the staffing needs of the 60 restaurants that we're directly connected with. But in addition to that, my network of hotels and graduates is across the whole province. So we probably have a labor force of thousands to place our students into. But this is one of those students. They got an LMIA opportunity with this employer. Meaning the employer was able to get permission to hire a foreign national, and our student was eligible to accept that job position with that company. Okay, so the LMIA work permit pathway and the traditional post-study work permit pathway, I think understanding this, work permits are sort of like a very complicated part of Canadian law, and I know that it can be different province to province, the rules for immigration. And so most of the advice we get for immigration, we get from a registered Canadian immigration consultant. But the LMIA just means a labor market impact assessment, which means an employer has to show that hiring a foreign national student into a permanent position is not going to disrupt a Canadian from the same position. So that's what the study has to do. So an employer, when they can't find qualified help in Canada, which is very common where I live, has to prove to the government that there's no eligible Canadians ready to take that position. And I work with placing students in these great job opportunities. So, the school takes care of that, so students don't have to. And we place them with a hotel. They apply for permission to hire a foreign national student. And based on the credentials the student gets studying at Cypress College, they're eligible to accept that work permit, and then they transition. So a student potentially could come and study in Canada for, 7.5 months, work with an employer, and then transition to a successful LMIA work permit. The LMIA work permit is a 2-year permit, but after the first year of experience, students apply directly for, permanent residency, and they can stay. So, and you can get advice from that. We work with an RCIC in Edmonton who helps students do that. I want to clarify that the school does not charge anything for job placements or connections with the employer, nor do we get paid to do so. We do that because there's a genuine vacancy with the hotels and partners that we work with. A traditional post-study work permit can take a student, they study for 2 years, so it costs twice as much. At a public college, they can pay as much as $24,000 a semester, so $48,000 for 2 years. They would study and get a 3-year postgraduate work permit, and then they would be applying for a PR in year, 6 or 7 when they're in Canada. So this is a much longer pathway. So for the kind of student who's interested in working in the hospitality pathway, our school can be a very attractive alternative path. I know that was the short and condensed version of the LMIA. I think Upendra can speak a little more.
Yeah, Dave, do you mind if I take Upendra here? And I think he has a vast experience of explaining students the difference between the LMIA work permit and post-study work permit. Because I'm sure agents here, they are very, obsessed about post-study work permit, and Upendra can really help them understand better.
Sure. Well, that becomes the biggest problem that most people confuse. So LMIA is a closed work permit. Post-study work permit is an open work permit. But eventually you have to understand both are awarded by the immigration, right? So sometimes we get students who say, or parents who say, पर ये LMIA तो guaranteed नहीं है. LMIA तो guaranteed नहीं. So what is post-study work permit? Is that guaranteed? Who gives this post-study work permit? Do colleges give post-study work permit? So we have to be very clear. Post-study work permit is something which is given by immigration. No college can guarantee you 3-year post-study work permit. Similarly, no college can guarantee you LMIA. But you have to understand how LMIA works. It is labor market impact assessment. So basically it works through knock list. Now, we are very much clear that majority of the Indian students who go to Canada, they have immigration on their mind. They're looking at PR. We have to understand what is the reason, what happens, why do people who go to Toronto or Vancouver, why do majority of the students shift provinces after a while? Because they shift their provinces, because even when they have 3-year work permit, they don't have a job which is in skill shortage. They don't have a job which is in the knock list, which will get them their PR. So even though they have 3-year work permit, it does not convert into a PR, which is why they have to change provinces. They either go to Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Atlantic provinces, and they do those same jobs. They might go and do a BPO job. They might go and work in a kitchen, but they do get a PR there with the same job, but they can't get their PR with the same job in Toronto. Why is that? It is simply because of knock list. Government has this policy with every location. For example, let me give you an example. Let's suppose somebody is doing this culinary program in Toronto. You do this program in Toronto. Let's suppose you finish a 2-year program. You have a 3-year post-study work permit. Now you're working in a kitchen as let's suppose a kitchen helper, because generally that's what you'll manage initially. Why will it not convert into PR? Because kitchen helper in Ontario region is not on the knock list. It's not in the skill shortage. And this is why the students will never meet the points. In Alberta, in Southern Alberta especially, kitchen helpers are in the knock list. So for the same job in Toronto, you will not manage your PR, but with that same job in Southern Alberta, kitchen helper qualifies for LMIA, qualifies for the provincial PR too. So how does this work? 1 year of studies. Of course, we have 2-year program also, but majority of our students choose to take up employment just after year 1. And they apply for LMIA. LMIA typically takes 2, 3, 4 months, by the time the students are issued LMIA. So we generally apply in 9th or 10th month. By 13th, 14th month, generally our students get their LMIA. They work for a year and they're eligible for PR. So LMIA is a far more advanced form of work permit. Of course, post-study work permit is an open work permit. You can keep on switching employers. In LMIA, you cannot switch employer, at least for your first year. But LMIA is your pathway to PR. Post-study work permit, even if a student works for 3 years, it does not guarantee you or it does not take you towards PR. So that's one of the biggest differences. Dave, as far as this presentation is concerned, there is still to go. I thought you'll finish up and then I'll give up.
Sure. I'll see what's next. I don't know what that is, so I'll let Jaya run that.
Yeah, we have a video just to show to the agents.
There are a lot of great parts, especially the teachers. They are like one of the best teachers I've seen. Very friendly and very helpful. My name is Kabir. I'm from India.
Hi, my name is Gar and I'm from New Delhi, India.
My name is Prabjot Singh. I'm from India. My agent referred me to Cypress College. Agent said it's a really good college for the culinary.
One of my friends used to study in Cypress College and he told me about some good stuff about it.
I did check out like on Google and some articles. Everybody said it was a good college, so I was like, let's go there.
In India, like everyone is doing the engineering and like same business schools. Most of the students doing the same things. There are not that much opportunities in India. In Canada, it's like we have a bright future, we have a successful life. After I came here, like my life is already changed.
They're so understanding and so professional. They have the main focus on the students.
They taught me like everything very carefully, like in depth. So now I can say like I can become a good chef.
It's a really good opportunity that I got that I came here. And I'm lucky. I recommend Cypress College. It's really good for the future.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Yes, I would highly recommend my friends and close ones.
Yeah, I would like to recommend like everyone Cypress College. It's a nice college. Everybody's like very friendly. People are very nice, and then and it worked for me. Thank you. There are a lot of it.
Okay.
Excellent. So Jai, you can review the fees with the agents and show the breakdown if you want.
Sure. Okay, so yes, we have very exciting opportunity here where you can get in touch with MSM to know how to pay the fees and what is the structure to pay the fees. We have a very quick around time for the offer letters, just so you know, because I understand that in India, the agencies are very much concerned about the offer letter turnaround time. Here we promise the offer letters to be coming to you within 24 hours. Business working days, and the LOA time, the letter of acceptance turnover time, is around 3 to 4 working days. So we make sure we have a full-fledged backend team. We make sure that the delivery of the offer letters and the LOAs are taken care on time. The overseas processing fees that we have is 350 CAD, okay, and so if you look at the fee, so we talk about the total fees here, which is 16,250, a part of 350 CAD. So 350 is what the student have to pay for the letter of acceptance. You can get the offer letter free of cost. We don't charge anything from the student or the agent for offer letter, initial offer letter. In the time of requesting LOA, you have to pay 350. The total fees of the program is 16,250. Here is what you can see the breakup. The annual tuition fee is 11,550, and the material cost, which says it includes your laptop, your tuition books, your lab supplies, and uniform and XYZ, whatever you'll be using for the entire year, it includes into 4,700. So if we sum these up, it is 16,600. The 1 year cost, we call it a total program cost because that's all the student have to pay, because after the year 1, the student is going to work with the employer. So Upen, would you like to cover the student profile that we are looking at?
Right. Before I begin with the entrance requirement, I would want you to understand that we are a culinary institute. We don't need very high academic background. So essentially what is required for us is a high school pass out who's reasonably good in his English. These are the only two requirements that we have. So internationally, our requirement is 6, no less than 5.5. We understand that for SDS, you need 6 with no less than 6. But, we'd love to have candidates with 6, no less than 6, so that they can apply under SDS. But we are, as of today, accepting applications with minimum 5.5, be it 1 section or 2. We recommend it should not be more than 1 because that is what you need to do for visa success. But if you give us applications with 1 or 2 sections, 5.5, as long as it's 6 overall, we are accepting applications. As such, we don't have a minimum percentage requirement. Like there are a host of institutes who say they should be minimum 15 maths, minimum 16 maths, or they say if you are a graduate, you should not have more than 6 backlogs, 4 backlogs, 8 backlogs. You should not have studied from an open school or an open board. So you have to understand these things do not matter to us. So student could be from an open school, student could be from an open university, from ICYMI, from NIOS. The scores could be lesser. Maths, no maths, doesn't matter to us. Science, commerce, arts. We have so many students who are from science background. We have so many students who are from commerce background, arts background. So actually all we really need is a high school pass out with IELTS 6, no less than 5.5. Now, as an institute, we have no problems with the gap. But I would want to remind you that from the immigration point of view, you have to be careful. As of today, we are accepting such applications in hope that our agent partners are wise enough to take care of the visa portion. So as far as our institute requirements are concerned, we are happy with high school pass out, 6, no less than 5.5. But I'll again repeat, be responsible, because eventually if the student doesn't get visa, you can't blame the college for that, because if you have very long unexplained gaps, if the language proficiency is too low, if academic scores are too low and you can't really back it, then you'll struggle to get a visa. Although from the visa point of view, my experience is that our institute being in Alberta only gives you an advantage. Our program being a culinary program only gives you an advantage. Very recently, we got a visa of a candidate who was refused twice by a university in British Columbia. He got his Cape notes. Eventually, he applied. One of our agents applied for him. And in his case, the reason mentioned was that his scores in class 12 were very low. So the reason mentioned was that the visa officer thought that the student is not capable enough to take the burden of the program. And he had applied for a business management program, the 2 refusals that he had from a university. And the third time around, he applied for us and he got his visa. So somebody who has low academic scores, I would say he has a better chance with us rather than a university, because the visa officer, it's easier to convince a visa officer that at least academically the student can take the burden of our program. We do accept PT, TOEFL, and Duolingo, but again, I would warn you that be careful about the visa portion. As a college, we accept Duolingo, PT, and TOEFL, but from the visa point of view, IELTS is the best. We do not necessarily need a background in hospitality or hotels. So if you give us a student, like Dave was just sharing, that we are essentially a reskilling program. So we get students from all the different backgrounds within Canada. All the domestic students, they come from a variety of fields: oil and gas, health sector, management, IT. So as far as the background is concerned, all we need is keenness to our field. That's all. High school pass out, IELTS 6.5. So that's for our requirements. Jaya?
I'd also add too, I know when we look at just the profile of the student, think about who would make a good worker in their hotel, right? And one of the things I'm always sensitive about as a teacher, so I teach, and I know that comes out when we're talking about student recruitment, that there are people who might be excellent university students who might not be great cooks, who might not be great chefs. And we have lots of people who are great chefs who are not going to be university bound. So, I just think when we're looking at academics, that's why that drop is. It's a hands-on skill. It isn't highly technical. It's not like learning pharmacy. It's just something you have to practice. And they don't have to have a background in it. However, if they do have restaurant experience and hotel experience, of course, that makes them valuable to our employers. And at graduation, it makes them very desirable. And so, some of our graduate students with experience actually make a little bit more money, like in our marketplace, because there is such a demand for them. So, of course, those are always welcome too.
Yeah, so Upendra, are we through with the presentation?
So
I think so.
Eventually I'll just try to give you a perspective from an agency point of view, that how Cypress different from the rest of the colleges. See, most of the other colleges are imparting academic qualifications. Most students who are going to Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, they're going for academic programs. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. All I'm saying is how we are different is our programs takes students towards guaranteed jobs. So we are a job-oriented program. And how it works from the Indian standpoint is, luckily, we're in the right location. So if Cypress College was in Toronto, we could have not offered the same thing. If we were in Vancouver, we could have not offered the same thing. The reason is the immigration rules. So luckily our location, and mind you, I'm telling you, location and the knock list allow us to offer these to students. There's no magic here that we are saying our students have guaranteed jobs. It's not because if we were in Toronto, those same jobs would not have taken students towards their PR. The reason that we are able to offer this to our students is because of the location. We also have a business program. We also have our IT program. We are not guaranteeing placements there. We are guaranteeing placements for a culinary program because of our location. Because of the location, there is an acute shortage, and that shortage is acknowledged by the government, which is why it is in the knock list. So sometimes, so many times, students tell us that, hey, in Toronto also there is shortage of kitchen helpers. Maybe, but government doesn't acknowledge it, and so it's not in the knock list.
Right.
So even if there is a shortage, and till the time the government does not acknowledge it, you're not going to get your PR for it.
It's true. It just doesn't help you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So our strength is this culinary kitchen helper position. The lowest position is in the knock list in Southern Alberta, which allows our students just in 1 year of work, they're able to apply for PR without reappearing for IELTS, without doing anything. Simply work for a year, they have their PR. Just 8 months of study. Our program is 8 months of study. Then there is 4 months of paid placement. We can't technically call it a co-op, but for all practical reasons, it's a co-op. So it's an 8-month study, 4 months paid placement. Within those 4 months placement, the LMI is issued. You get a 1 year, the LMI is for 2 years, that work permit. And within 1 year of that, students are eligible for PR. Now, why is it that we say, number one thing is settled, there's shortage. Government acknowledges it, because of which is in the knock list. So that part is settled. The second thing is, does that mean that any institute who comes up in Southern Alberta can immediately offer the same thing? No. You have to understand the way that our program works. Now, within these 8 months, we are skilling our students in a specific way. And most government institutes can do the same, but they don't have enough incentive to do the same. So essentially, in these 8 months, there are 4 to 5 certifications that students get. Those certifications are very important for an employer to hire you. There are specific skills that you need to get in these 7-8 months. So apart from technicalities, there is a lot of skilling going on. So how are we different in that regard? We are more of an apprenticeship program. We are not an academic program. We are a trade program. It's like an on-job training. Within our program, the last part of the program happens in a commercial kitchen. Now, most of the colleges, they'll have a makeshift kitchen in their colleges where whatever they cook, they're going to they're going to throw it away or students are going to eat it up. What happens over here in the latter part of the course, it happens in a commercial kitchen in a 4-star hotel facility. Our campus is in Medicine Hat Lodge, which is one of the biggest 4-star properties in Southern Alberta, where our campus is. Students get to, they get their skills over there. So, Dave, I would want you to expand on how our partnership with Medicine Hat Lodge, how students doing this program there makes all the difference in students being able to get these jobs.
Yeah, so I think, basically the apprenticeship model in Canada for education, this is something that was harder for me at first to explain in the international market, because the domestic Canadian students are very familiar with apprenticeship models. We're taught about it in our high schools, but I didn't realize that apprenticeships are generally closed to non-Canadians. So our school model is generally just not offered internationally to international students, but our program is fully equivalent with that model. So international students studying with us, one of the certifications that they earn is an equivalent to their period 1 cook. And then a period 1 cook is expected, of course, to work in a kitchen and gain experience in hours working under a master chef, right? So that's how that apprenticeship model works. I think in India too, where you have, a master level person with a skill, and then people who work underneath them to acquire that skill over time. Our chefs are both the teacher, and then we do real culinary events for the real community that we sell tickets to, because it's an operating hotel. We have 3 restaurants in the hotel. And then we sell tickets and we do events with multiple courses. And so students can gain experience in each of the categories that we need to show experience for the employers when we place them and when they apply for their LMIA. So students at the end of the course have education, but they also have intrinsically built into that education this work experience or this practicum experience. But I know with practicums that those words sort of mean different things in different regions. So I try to explain that it's all inside our program. Because we're able to offer to the public directly, we're doing our practicum time internally at the end of the course. And that is the advantage of being inside the property. Because then we have access to the public to do real food events. I mean, on non-COVID days, we have access to do real food events in the community, sell tickets, do big events. And our property is sort of the destination location for banquets, for weddings, for dinner theater, all of those pieces inside our property. So, I mean, we can do banquets of up to 800 people.
Great. So I'll just take a few questions that I hear. Manish Sharma is asking your instructions. I think maybe he wants to ask our institute is public or private. Manish, we are a private institute. The whole our model is based on this, that since we are a private institution, you do not have post-study work permit. So normally, if we were a public institution, you would study 1 year and only get 1 year post-study work permit. Now, in our case, you study for 1 year, you get 2-year LMIA work permit. But let's suppose you have a student who's very keen on just this post-study work permit. He doesn't care about a job. He doesn't care about PR. Then, okay, You can still come to us, study first year with us, second year with public college. We can transfer your program to Cinnabar College, study your second year there, and get your post-study work permit if that's what you want for your students. But hey, come on, let's understand what's the end goal here. Is the end goal 3-year post-study work permit? What are you going to do after that? If your goal is PR, then you can get that only with 1 year of study here. But for those of the students who sometimes say, some of our agencies say, hey, what if government changes laws tomorrow or something? Yes, we do have a pathway. Study 1 year with us, second year with the public college. We have a collaboration with one public college, but practically, let me tell you, you could go to any college because we are a Red Seal program.
It's the same across Canada. Yeah, the program we teach will be the same across all of those schools, and it's definitely transferable. But even we still have a formal partnership agreement, which ties that up. The challenge has been, though, once the students come here and they see the demand for employers, and I don't think I could explain that properly to the agencies, but like when I pull into my parking spot at my office, there's people waiting at the door to talk to me in the morning, and it isn't students applying to school. It's restaurant owners trying to get our students graduate to come work for them. Like the demand from employers is very strong. And once the students see that and understand that, they never take the second year on for it. So I have an articulation pathway with the Assiniboine College, but so far none of the students have done anything but take the money and start work at the properties. So, but that's available. So if a student is worried about that, what if that happens? Well, you know, our first year is still cheaper than many of the other public colleges. So it's a smart gamble either way. But if you wanted the postgraduate work permit pathway, you can do that through us. But more commonly, students just take the money. I mean, instead of paying $24,000, you can get paid like $32,000 to $36,000 working in that second year. That's the part that might be hard to see.
And get your
agent's point of view.
Get your PR.
And get the PR, and they pay you to do it, right? So it's hard to turn that down. The students almost always take the money. But I mean, the option's still there. They can, if that was a concern that an agent or a family had, of course, it's available to them too.
Right. So now the next question is, and also further to expand you, I think I skipped one part, although Dave did mention that our institute exists since 2001. See, our college till date is basically meant for domestic students, where till date 75% of students are domestic. Now you have to understand, why do domestic students choose us if they can go to any public institution too? Because anyway, their amount is funded by the government, whether they come and study with us or they study with the public college. So again, to clarify with the first question, our college is private, but the program that we are running is a government approved program. So,
yes.
So rest assured by that, we have a designated learning institute.
And that's unique. That's unique for as a private school. That is a unique arrangement. So for all the, for some people who are just used to thinking of private schools in one category, we're the only private school in Alberta that's the partner with the government for teaching the government's own cook trade program.
Right. All right. So the next question is Nikunj. A quick question: culinary program. What is minimum wage salary for paid placement after 8 months of study? So like Dave was mentioning, the minimum, so guaranteed minimum wages are $15 an hour, but typically students get paid around between $17 and $18 per hour. But the minimum wages are $15 an hour.
Yeah. And a little bit that depends on regions in Alberta. So sometimes the bigger cities cost more, pay more, but a student will make, anywhere between that, like $28,000 and $34,000 a year during that year of LMIA. 15 Canadian dollars is the minimum amount you can make. But and also there can be gratuity and some other incomes in there as well. In Canada, traditionally, there's tipping in hospitality, and some of that is split into the kitchen. So depending on work placement, that can vary a little bit. But it's a pretty good income. I mean, for where we live, that's enough to pocket some money for sure.
Especially if you compare it from the point of view of a student. Let's suppose a student is going for a normal program, which is 2 years. First year, he spends $16,000. Then second year again, 16, 17, 18,000. Rather than spending that 16, the student is getting 30 to 35. So that's a big difference. Yeah. Number one, but that's not the only difference. Number two, in any other college you're studying year 2, all you can be sure of is a 3-year post-study work permit. You can't be sure of your peer. Over here, with just 1 year of that job, you're assured of your peer. So that's the key difference.
In our transfer, I think the one thing that it doesn't always get value if a student doesn't understand this model is that having an employer back you in Canada is a big deal. So, and having the employer want you and want you to stay, that's a big key to this ingredient, right? And I think that's the part that as an agent, especially if you're learning about different regions, you might not have run into that ingredient before, because schools don't always, they're great schools, they have great programs, but they don't have an incentive to place students. For us, placing students is a side effect that also helps my partner needs. The hotel partners I work with have this intrinsic shortage. So coming to me to help fill them is how we started recruiting internationally. So everybody wins. The hotel wins by finding qualified workers after we train them. The student wins by getting real jobs where they can get experience and work, and then the opportunity for their LMIA or to stay in Canada. So it is exciting and everybody wins. And I think that we're making a real impact. But I always think it's funny that, especially this year with COVID being this way, I mean, we're definitely getting more and more momentum from agents like yourself and getting the word out to students. So we're starting to see that momentum from India. But also the word's getting out with employers in Alberta. So I actually spend, a quarter of my day every day talking to companies who phone me up and say they want to hire 25 of my cooks. And I was telling them there's 13 that are coming out this month, and then the next month. We're not meeting the need at all. We're barely touching it. So there's lots of opportunity in Alberta right now, especially for students who are interested, in these next 18, 24 months. It'll be a great opportunity. So.
Yes, one last thing I wanted to mention is that we have 6 intakes in a year. Every alternate month, we have a session. Right now, we are open for January, which is generally a rarity in Canada. So till October end, we are open for the January session. Our offer letters take 24 hours, 1 working day, and LOA takes no more than 4 working days. So we are still open for January, and we have 6 sessions in a year. Jaya, have we missed out on anything?
Yeah, we have a last question, Upen. It says that the student is from finance background in a bank. What are the chances of him or her getting a visa?
No, okay, yeah, I'm reading that question. Now, Joy, that's a very, very generic question. So a student from finance background doesn't really matter now. Whether that student is from finance background or IT background or any background, first of all, he has to explain to the visa officer his motivation to pursue this particular program. And whatever that motivation is should make sense to the visa officer. If it makes sense, that why would a student from such a background try to go for this? Now, very recently, we've had a student from Australia, an Indian student who did his MBA and MPA from Australia, MBA and MPA from Australia, but had 2 years of hospitality experience in Australia, in Sydney. And he got his visa. So he was able to explain to the visa officer that why would pursuing this program have any kind of future for his career. So any background, you have to basically explain that. What's the last date for January intake? I just mentioned 30th of this month. I'm going to get right max backlog. So I've already told you we don't have any problems with backlogs or study gap. So you could have 100 backlogs and we don't care, because all we need is anybody who's at least a high school pass out. We are a trade program. So we have domestically, we have had candidates at the age of 50. But internationally, so far, we have had people till under 35. We have had so many students who are between the age group of 30 and 35. So from visa point of view, you have to understand it's not that. So anybody who's around 30, whether they apply for a graduate certificate in Ontario, post-baccalaureate, or a master's, they're going to struggle anyway. So more than the level of the program in such a case, it should make sense to the visa officer why you motivated towards this particular field. And if you're able to explain that, you have it.
But from the school's point of view, the one thing I want to just clarify is Upendra's speaking about the strictness of the visa pass out. At the school's level, of course, we can take people changing careers. We can take people changing in Canada, that's very common. But it's true that none of that matters if they can't get the study visa. That's it. So it isn't the school saying they can't come, but it would be just explaining at the visa level why they're acceptable. I also, sorry, I just want to add to that too. I know we'll get to the other ones too. I just want to add, to me, one of the things to communicate to students is that COVID has created an interesting opportunity where going sooner is more desirable than waiting and seeing, right? So there is a real advantage to getting to Canada right now. Right now, the only immigration we have that we're seeing affecting our labor market at all is through study. Everything's been closed, and it's been closed this entire time for COVID. Now, Canada, now people from India have been coming to Canada for my whole life, and that's been wonderful. But Canada has an older population, so we still have people retiring out of our workforce all the time, and there have not been workers to replace them. So our restaurants and hotels, I don't think I can emphasize enough that people would see until they got here. The shortage is real. So if you can be here and studying ahead of the wave of immigration that's going to come someday, it's really to a student's advantage.
Right. So I think we've covered all these portions. Jaya, there's anything left?
No, we have covered all the questions. Vipul, how do we conclude this?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so all the questions are covered, and guys, thank you so much for making this webinar so easy and so elaborative. I totally understand that there are many agents who want to understand about the modules, about the course, but just telling the right information about how a student should reach there, what he has to look forward for, how he'll be applying for the further processes. So that is something which is really practical, logical, and an agent has to understand that. So thank you so much for making it so elaborative and so easy. And I wish that we'll get maximum benefits out of this. So yes, thank you so much. And yes, and all the questions are also elaboratively answered. I guess that any more questions, thank you so much, all the participants for coming, for taking out time on your busy schedule. And for any information you have, your managers, recruitment support, you can get in touch with them, get in touch with me. And for any assistance you need, obviously we have Cypress College for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Vipul. And
thank you so
everybody.
much, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, guys.